we know that Mr. Paul O'Sullivan, immediately after addressing the nation on the 6th of July, he came on television and he said bad things about me. And it did not start. He's been on this for years, commissioners. The relationship between him and Gerald Spear is something that's an open secret. So could it be that because I mentioned things about his friend that made him to respond like this? I said, this Mr. Paul O'Sullivan is working in the security industry as a security industry person. He wants to work at the airport in Johannesburg, and after that, he then opened his own company. I know of, maybe I can put it here, commissioners, that, as I said, I've got informers. The Chief of Staff of the Minister of Police, Mr. Nkabinde, used to work for IPIT. He has given me files about the modus operandi in IPIT, and when he used to be there, the role that Mr. Policeman was playing in IPIT. There was a fallout between the two of them. Mr. Paul O'Sullivan does not mince his words when he speaks out there. He just speaks openly. So I don't want to debate what he's saying. I want him to come before this commission and come and argue the things that I've presented in these past 3 days, that everything is a lie. And he must tell me why he says it's a lie. Not to come here and accuse me on something that he cannot substantiate, but if he's got evidence of it, he's welcome to come. It's an open commission. This. He must come here and say, this is what Mkwanas has done, this is what Mkwanas has done, this is what Mkwanas has done. For me, what I can tell you, what we have picked up, we are investigating. I became aware of this, I registered a case. The case is being investigated in KZN. I hope he also pick up things against me. He registers a case being investigated, and you see the outcome of it.
A few moments later.
Since I'd sent that email to General Sitoli with a copy to General Libia, I've not shared it with anybody else. So either somebody at their office or they themselves have shared that information with General Khan. So I've now got him coming to my office, demanding to know why I've laid a complaint against him. So I've had to deal with that issue. But I just denied it. I said, no, I didn't lay a complaint against you.
Did you ever pursue either General Libea or General Sitole regarding your complaint to establish what had become of it? So
as I mentioned earlier to the commissioners, if I had to pursue every single tip-off that comes through our office to the nth degree, in other words, to keep knocking on the door, but we're eventually going to become a nuisance to somebody. We receive the information, we validate it, and we pass it on. We package it and we pass it on. That's all we do. It's not our job to investigate it. So we just look at it, pass it on, and then we believe it's up to the police. And in this case, it was up to either General Sitoli or General Libia to look into it. But as I've said in my statement, I didn't hear from them again. So I'm assuming they didn't look into it.
In your statement, page 12, paragraph 1.4.4, you then introduce Annexure P, which would be your correspondence with General Masemula of 31st July 2023.
Yes.
And I understand from that communication that you shared the same Annexure M that you had originally written to General Sitole.
Yes.
With General Masemula. You deal with those issues at your paragraph 1.4.4.
Yes. So what happened there, Commissioners, on the 30th of July, 2023, which is now 2 years after I've laid this formal complaint with General Sitole. By this stage, the Commissioner of Police is now General Masemola. So on the 30th of July, I look at News 24, and there's this scandalous article, which is attached as Annexure O.
That's at page 241.
241, where it refers to top cop attending EFF gala, a shameful, offensive slap in the face of South Africans. and it talks about General Khan, and it talks about the fact that his ticket for General Khan at this EFF gala dinner had been paid for by, shall we say, associates of General Khan, who were allegedly involved in the illicit tobacco trade. So I see this, and I think, wow, this is not good. It's 2 years since I've sent a formal complaint through to General Sitoli and General Libya. Now, I decide I'm not going to engage with General Libya again because I've already engaged with him and he's done nothing. So I write to the new, or then relatively new, Commissioner of Police, which is General Malema.
Yes.
On the 31st of July, which is the day after I've read this article. And I say, dear General Malema, it's most disheartening to read in the media about how rotten crime intelligence is. Police management know about this man, Feroz Khan, but what is going to be done about it? And by the way, when I send this email, I attach to it, so I'm forwarding the original email that I've sent 2 years earlier. And I said, it will take someone explaining to understand how this man can jet around the country in a jet owned by a tobacco smuggling kingpin, Syed. Of course, I could have used the word alleged, but I didn't. And also drive around in Lamborghinis. I said, does it need for him to be caught with a smoking gun for the management to get rid of him? And when I talk about management, commissioners, I'm talking about management of the police. And then I say, I'm copying the editor of News 24, as I believe the people of South Africa have a right to know what's been going on. And then I say, I finish the email up with, although General Sitoli did not bother to respond to my mail in May 2021, perhaps you will be able to do so.
Did you receive a response to this communication, and if so, what was, in summary, the response?
No, commissioners, no response whatsoever. And by that stage, I think it became the order of the day that any such communications were just ignored. So that didn't stop me from making the communications, because later on, when we have a commission of inquiry like this, I can show, but hang on a minute, this is not the first time these things have cropped out of the woodwork. Here we've got the evidence that I've been continually supplying information and evidence, and nothing has been done about it. And that's why you're going to find later in my affidavit, I make it clear that actually police management does not take action against senior police officials unless they have an agenda or motive for doing so. And that is part of the problem that we have with the police service today.
You don't say in your statement, but besides the newspaper articles and the reports you filed following whatever investigations you did around General Khan's companies, was there any evidence that you provided to either General Masemola, General Libya, or General Sitole that constitutes evidence to support the allegations you make in your previous communication to them of May 2021? Or is it what you have shared with the Commission now that you made available to these generals?
I was not able to supply any prima facie evidence. If I had prima facie evidence, commissioners, apart from notifying the management of the police, I would have opened a criminal docket. But you cannot open a criminal docket based on a hypothesis. So what we would have expected to do as Forensics for Justice, we expected the management of the police to take this and look at it.
Yes.
but unfortunately nothing was done.
Noted. Is there anything else on that subtopic you would like to highlight, because you start a new one at your page 13?
No, I think we've covered that in sufficient detail.
Okay. Then if we turn to page 13 at paragraph 1.5, you now introduce a different topic. You headed the erstwhile acting commissioner, Lieutenant General Pahlane. You deal quite extensively with this matter. If you could briefly then address yourself to it.
Yes.
And as you do so, because at your paragraph 1.5.3, you introduce the DPCI judge report, which is your annexure Q. If you could just highlight the relevance of those findings in that report to the terms of reference of the Commission. Thank you.
So, what I'm trying to get across here, Commissioners, is that if you have an entity such as Forensics for Justice, which at the end of the day, it's a not-for-profit organization or charity, whatever you want to call it, the reality is that we are not out there to conduct ourselves in a malicious manner. We're out there to help bring accountability specifically in the criminal justice system. So the purpose of this section of my evidence is to show that if you step out and expose corruption within the criminal justice system, you actually become a target yourself. And that's exactly what happened here. And if I can place on record that in respect of General Pahlane, that between 2015 and 2017, I carried out extensive investigations and lodged various criminal complaints against General Pahlane with IPID. I supplied copies of my criminal complaint to then Deputy President of South Africa, now President Cyril Ramaphosa. As a result of the complaints I made against General Pahlane, I was singled out for unlawful action by corrupt police officials at the instance of both General Pahlane and other senior officers. The crimes against me included multiple arrests, multiple raids on my home and offices, kidnapping, torture, unlawful imprisonment, and multiple attempts at murder by proxy. And I can go into a lot of detail on that, but to save time, I'm not going to. But we had a situation where the attempts to murder me were being instigated by senior police officials. I was unlawfully arrested and detained over 2 years later for using my Irish passport. The reason I used my Irish passport was because at the time Radovan Krejcir wasn't in jail, but he had cops on his payroll and they were waiting for me to come back into South Africa so they could arrange for me to be murdered. So what I did was I slipped in on my Irish passport instead of my South African passport. And 2 years later, I get arrested for that because that's all they could find to arrest me on. And they detained me for 4 days. We talk about General Pahlane. The evidence will show that he's currently on trial, on various trials, and the sum total of the corrupt contracts exceeds 500 million rand. Now, those trials are ongoing. So, in 2016, as a result of all this unlawful conduct against myself, which was coming from DPCI, and by that stage, I'm saying DPCI was captured and the National Prosecuting Authority was captured. As a result of this unlawful conduct, I laid a formal complaint with the judge for they call him the DPCI judge. He was a retired judge. And I laid a formal complaint comprising 3 lever arch files. And that complaint was laid in 2016, towards the end of 2016. On The 6th of October 2022, the judge released this.
Sorry. I think paragraph 1.5.3, the last line, an amendment should be made there. It says you laid your complaint in July 2026.
Thank you. It should be 2016.
Thank you.
That's a typo for which I apologize. So, in fact, I laid the complaint in July 2016, and it comprised of 3 lever arch files with all the evidence. And then I left the DPCI judge to get on with it. And the DPCI judge issued a report, which is contained as Annexure Q at 246. Now, that's a very lengthy report, Commissioners. So what I've done, on page 14, I've extracted the relevant sections of the report, and I'd like to read it into the record halfway down page 14, and it continues on page 15, and it finishes at the top of page 16, so it's only about 2 or 3 minutes of reading. And the DPCI judge made the following findings against Major General Mokateri. In respect of Mr. O'Sullivan's arrest and the manner in which it was carried out at OR Tambo International Airport on 01 April 2016 in the presence of his children, needlessly detained for several days for what is a minor infraction of having allegedly contravened Section 26B of the South African Citizens Act, and his dubious prosecution in State versus O'Sullivan, case number B803/2016 Kempton Park, for which he was acquitted in terms of Section 174 of the Criminal Procedures Act. Major General Mokateri is found guilty of having seriously and unlawfully infringed the rights of Mr. O'Sullivan as contemplated in Section 17L of the SAPS Act. As far as the cold cases against
Mr. O'Sullivan, here? Yes. Why Mr. General Mokotedi? Is it because he's the one that effected the arrest?
So,
was he the complaint? What happened?
No, Commissioner. General Mokotedi had been, and I'll be able to prove this, it's not just an allegation, General Mokotedi had been unlawfully appointed as the head of DPCI in Gauteng during the state capture process. So you had General Ntlemeza. I'd opened a case against General Ntlemeza before this, by the way. I'd opened a case against General Ntlemeza. I'd opened a case against Lieutenant General Pashlani, who was the acting Commissioner of Police, and I'd opened a case against General Mokateri. So Mokateri was the senior person who led the group of about 30 police officials who targeted me and Forensics for Justice and the staff that worked for me. So there was, as you will see, there was a campaign over several years against us.
Thank you.
Shall I carry on? As far as the cold cases against Mr.